I want to just give my general understanding of the U.S. position. At the beginning, the U.S. Gave the green light for Israel to retaliate because what was Israel supposed to do? We know the whole story. So it had the right to retaliate. Uh, is the U.S. believed Israel had to restore its deterrence capacity, which basically means it has to show the Arab world that it's not weak. So the U.S. went along with that goal as well. There was the revenge goal the U.S. accepted, the retaliation goal, the need to restore its deterrence capacity. The U.S. went along with that, but the U.S. wasn't committed to the destruction of Gaza. It had no strategic interest in that. It's not as if Hamas was firing rockets at the United States. They didn't much care. They did care about Israel, as I said, restoring its deterrence capability, because basically the only reason the Arab states want this alliance with the United States and Israel is they want the U.S. and Israel to pull their chestnuts out of the fire in the event of a conflict with Iran. So Israel had to restore its deterrence capability so that Iran would see that so that Saudi Arabia could see that investment in the expansion of the Abraham Accords as being in its interest. If Israel is weak, then why have an accord with Israel? Israel is there to defend Saudi interests. But the third goal, the goal of solving the Gaza question, was not on the U.S. agenda. They don't much care because they're not really affected by it. Now, what happened was Israel seemed to be have a string of victories in the past year, and the United States now believes if Israel continues on a roll and the axis of resistance is destroyed, well, then the next obvious occurrence will be the expansion of the Abraham Accords to include the Saudis. So for the U.S., that would be the crowning victory. So at this point, it's supportive of the Israeli goal of neutering the so-called axis of resistance, and thereby paving the way to the Saudi joining of the Abraham Accords.
Yes, I think if it is indeed the case that Israel previously had the capability to assassinate Nasrallah, I think the reasons it didn't happen is first because Israel did not want to confront the repercussions of doing so, some of which I think we're learning today. And secondly, as with, for example, Israeli intentions to attack nuclear facilities in Iran, that such initiatives were vetoed by the US, including by the administration of George W. Bush and Obama, and I presume Trump as well. But I think what we have now in Washington is an administration that is uniquely devoted to the Israeli agenda, that has taken a position that it will not challenge any Israeli policy decision, even if Washington believes that that decision runs counter to or undermines US interests. Biden has this policy of there can be no daylight between the United States and Israel, and is therefore committed to arming, to supplying, to providing diplomatic cover, to providing unconditional support for any and every Israeli policy, even where it is the White House's belief that that Israeli policy runs counter to the U.S. National interest. But I think it now goes even further than that, which is that Washington is not only providing, let's say, reluctant support. I think we can now make the case that Washington is fully on board with the U.S. With the Israeli agenda and Israeli objectives, and is committed to achieving them. That also explains, I think, why we've seen so many more deployments of U.S. forces to the Middle East, for example. Having said that, I also agree with pretty much everything Norman said in response to this question.
Yeah, well, I don't see how to answer this in a concise way because Germany is in a deep political crisis. Just ask German politicians what year it's this. I think this is a key question because for a lot of Germans, they are still trapped within in the idea of the Second World War. And they say that because of Germany's genocide, the Holocaust committed during the Second World War against Jews, they often forget not only against Jews, there were other victims of the Holocaust, of that genocide, Sinti and Roma, for example. But because of that historical responsibility, Germany has to stand with Israel, which is a strange logical jump because Israel did not exist during the Second World War. It was Jews who don't live in Israel, majority of Jews don't live in Israel, somehow don't count as the inheritors of the object of German guilt. But interestingly, these same Germans have no problem inciting against Russia, even though during the Second World War, Germany actually did invade Russia. You know, that was a country that existed during the Second World War. So then Germans would say, no, but of course this is not the same Russia and it's not the same Germany. And Putin's Russia today is a country which commits a war of aggression, occupation, and annexation against another country. So we have to stop them. Well, I know of another country that commits a war of aggression, occupation, annexation against another country, which is Israel. So are we in 2024 or are we in 2044? 1944, sorry. So this is the question, what year it is. And there is such a big gap within Germany between public opinion and the government position. Most Germans don't think that this hypocrisy is sustainable. Most Germans think you need to have a consistent position. If occupation is bad, it's bad when Russia does it, and it's bad when Israel does it. If genocide is bad, then it's bad when Germany does it, but it's also bad when Israel does it. This is what most Germans actually think. But the government and the institutions and the churches in Germany, which are the most conservative force within German society, are the churches. They are pushing for this hypocrisy. And because of this gap between public opinion and those who have power, it creates a void to be filled with populist parties. This is a dangerous thing because the populism is coming mostly from the right wing, from the far right, which is a dangerous thing when one of the, in fact, the biggest party in Germany, which is really calling for peace, is a very, very right-wing racist party. There's also a left populist party which is now emerging in Germany, but it's maybe a bit too early to say. It's not completely clear what this party really represents and how much is it leftist really and how much is it populist really. These are difficult questions. I don't think we should get too much into those intricacies, but certainly Germany is
Are you referring to Sarah Wagenknecht?
Yes, Sarah Wagenknecht, she was part of the left party So coming from the left, but accuse the left party of being hypocritical. And it's true. It is hypocritical, the left. It says we don't want to provide weapons, but when Israel is doing it, it's fine. So this is a problem. And the left party pretty much collapsed because of this. But this crisis in Germany, I think, is maybe an extreme example of the crisis that you see in the West all over, because you have now a coalition in Germany in control, which is supposed to be more moderate and leftist than the previous one, and made big promises about using soft power and cutting the military spending and being more environmentally responsible. This is what this coalition was elected. This is the platform upon which they were elected. And they made a 180-degree turn by saying, actually, we're going to increase military expenditure beyond the wildest imaginations of the right wing. We're going to completely forget all of our promises for environmental sustainability and instead fill the skies with war jets and the seas with warships. And we're going to forget about soft power and just build more missiles and artillery and use those in order to influence our foreign relations when it costs Germany its good relations with the rest of the world. So Germany's reputation in the world is plummeting because of this. And also the economy is suffering. So really the West has a crisis. The crisis is centered on Gaza more than anywhere. Much more than Ukraine, the crisis is coming from Gaza, because that's where the hypocrisy is just unbelievable. When the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is saying that he has complete confidence that Israel is following international law in its operation in Gaza, and he's just willing to say this in a straight face, nobody is believing a word he says anymore. Do you see how deep this crisis is? So yeah, this is I just have the misfortune of living in Germany in a time like this. I'm not too happy about it, but this is the reality. But I think in a similar way, you see these things also in other Western countries. You certainly see it in France and Denmark and Italy and Spain. It's just much worse in Germany.
Yes, Germany is pretty extreme in terms of the divide that you mentioned about the population and the government. One of the things that I often find surprising is there are a lot of Germans that at least I've met. They are not extreme neo-libertarians, which in the US, on the other hand, you find a lot of people who actually believe in libertarianism and all that free market bullshit. You don't find them a lot in Germany, while the German government actually promotes neoliberalism so vigorously across Europe and everywhere.
One of the ruling parties in Germany, it's called the FDP, which is the democracy of freedom, the party of freedom. They are very neoliberal. I wouldn't say libertarian, but certainly very neoliberal in their economic platform. But they make an exception. They say people have the right to choose how to spend their money and where to work and all that. But if they want to boycott Israel, that should be banned. So the state should intervene and tell people that you're not allowed to decide what are your consumer products if you want to boycott Israel. And so you really see how this hypocrisy is undermining their whole ideology.
Yeah, so I think it'd be useful here maybe to return just briefly to 1982, because American rhetoric in 1982 precisely mirrors American rhetoric today. So if you listened to what American officials were saying, say, in April and May of 1982, the months leading up to Israel's massive invasion of Lebanon, they were calling for restraint on both sides. They were asking the Israelis not to take action within Lebanon that would lead to a broader conflagration. And they were very public about their opposition to a major Israeli invasion. That's what they were saying in public. In private, the discourse was very, very different. So we know, for example, that already in July of 1981, national security staffers were advocating that, quote, we allow Israel to smash the PLO in Lebanon while making the appropriate tutting noises, right? So tut tut, please don't. But here's your military aid. And that's precisely what ended up happening. In the 3 months prior to the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982, U.S. military aid to the state of Israel went up by 50%. And we see the same thing playing out today. U.S. policy towards Israel and its actions in Lebanon has always been somewhat akin to a person walking in on a man beating a woman, urging restraint on the both of them, and then handing a hammer to the man. Um, the US government likes to act as if it has very little control over Israeli actions. And that's reflected in the press. So, for example, the New York Times ran a few weeks back an article, the headline of which ran something like, Why the World's Greatest Power Can't Stop a War in Lebanon. And then you read through the article and you get about halfway down, and it says, well, of course, Joe Biden's administration is providing the state of Israel with $15 billion in military aid, but it can't use that leverage because Israel's a strategic ally. Well, that's just saying, of course we could stop what the Israelis are doing in Lebanon. We just don't want to. The press has also been reporting that key figures within the Biden administration, people like, for example, Brett McGurk, who's kind of heading up Middle East negotiations, have endorsed privately the Israeli quote unquote limited incursion in Lebanon because they view it as a gateway towards dealing a massive blow to Iran. They basically have signed on to the Israeli vision for a completely reformulated strategic Middle East landscape. So I think that when American officials tell us that they either don't know what the Israelis are doing or that they want the Israelis to be restrained, but can't really do much about it, we should take that with an ocean of salt, an ocean of salt. I'll just maybe add that another key thing here to note, right, is that the people formulating policy during the Reagan administration in 1982, these were neoconservatives. The Reagan administration is the first American administration that's staffed with a significant number of neoconservatives. And the people who are now staffing the Biden administration, people like Brett McGurk, these people are the ideological progeny of the individuals who are making policy in the Reagan administration. There's an almost straight line between the kind of ideological thinking in the Reagan administration and the ideological thinking that's going on in the Biden administration now.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have 2 requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.